Now allow me this, please, if you will. If you've watched all or part of this Netflix docuseries on the Dallas Cowboys, America's team, the gambler and his Cowboys, buckle up now because I'm about to unleash on it. And I'm not sure there's anyone out there in better position to unleash on it because I was the only one who was inside all of it, but objectively inside it, as in 1 foot in and always 1 foot out, an outsider on the inside, if you will, giving me the best perspective to see the big picture that Jerry and Jimmy and Troy and Barry and Michael and Emmett and Dion and Charles Haley just couldn't step back and focus on. So if you've seen the doc, you know I serve as a sort of narrator commentator through all of the 8 episodes because I did write 3 books that went way behind the scenes with the Dallas Cowboys, books that came out in 1990 and 1993, and finally in 1996. Was I ever blessed to be at the rightest place at the rightest time? Whew. Because as you see in the doc, those teams through the 90s were the most controversial and fascinating teams in the history of sports. That is the objective truth. I dare you to tell me otherwise. So now I'm about to share with you my biggest, strongest, deepest conclusions after I carefully watched this doc. So first, allow me to say that my final takeaway was just to sit back and smile and shake my head. I cannot begin to express to you how much negativity I withstood from fans and from media when each of my 3 books first came out. You want to talk about controversial? Whew. And now talk about vindication and validation. Look, I realize nobody in the world cares about this but me, but this entire documentary vindicates and validates what I was the first to report in each of those 3 books. I'm sorry, that's just the truth. I reported what nobody was ready to hear at that moment. In each case, I wasn't right on time. I was actually ahead of my time in all 3 cases, as you can see in the doc. My first book was called God's Coach. It was about the rise and the fall of Thomas Wade Landry, leading to Jerry Jones buying the team and firing Coach Landry. And as you probably know, Coach Landry wasn't just revered in Cowboy Nation, he was worshipped. And for me to report that in those final 3 years of Landry, he was just losing it, forgetting plays and players' names during games, well, Cowboy Nation just wasn't ready to read that. Fans weren't ready to hear that owner Bum Bright despised Tom Landry, despised him so much, the Landry who wouldn't even give Bright the time of night at Christmas parties, that Bum Bright chose by far the lowest bid for the Dallas Cowboys because the lowest and least qualified bidder, Jerry Jones, the outsider, was the only bidder who said he'd fire Tom Landry. That's the only way Jerry bought it, is that he lucked into saying, oh, I don't want to go forward with Tom Landry. And for me, this is the only in Dallas irony of this whole tale, is that Jerry Jones told Bum Bright he was bringing in his good friend Jimmy Johnson to coach the Cowboys, the same Jimmy that Jerry would soon be calling that motherfucker, as he does in the documentary. Only in Dallas. Much of what I first reported in God's Coach is in this doc, but the media pretty much scoffed at God's Coach. They hadn't reported it, so it couldn't be true. And by the way, God's Coach was my favorite of my 3 books. It's the inside truth from start to finish about that entire franchise history. Allow me to say this, I'm just not sure I'm capable of reporting and writing at a higher level than I did in God's Coach. But the other two books had bigger, better stories to tell. But before I leave God's Coach, understand I spent so much time interviewing Jerry Jones for God's Coach that I got to know him before most of the media did. Maybe all the media did. I really got to know him. And I must admit, I liked him. And I think I was the only media member in Dallas who began to predict in my newspaper columns that Jerry Jones, who was ridiculed in those days as Jethro Jones, the hick from the Arkansas Sticks, that Gerald Wayne Jones would do great things in Dallas. I was a proponent of Jerry's. I was a defender. I campaigned that this was going to work because Jerry was going to drive it home. And did he ever? So my biggest takeaway on Jerry Jones is that I can't help it. I still like the heck out of him. He obviously can be just runaway egomaniacal, as you see in the doc. He's turned into a stubborn old coot, just irrationally stubborn. And he's obviously the owner who will never, ever fire his general manager himself. And Jerry, weirdly but truly, does not know or get football. I'm sorry, that's the truth. Yet, in the end, it's hard for me not to like Jerry Jones, who has the best and biggest heart of anyone in that documentary. And in the end, is weirdly the most likable figure in that doc, although Barry Switzer is a close second.